If you've been watching the news lately feeling like the walls are closing in, you're not wrong. Rising fascism isn't coming, it's actually here. And it's not waiting for us to get it together. But here's the thing, we can't wait either. This is the moment for strategy, not panic. For organizing that actually moves the needle, and for leadership that builds beyond the fire. So if you're asking, what do I do now? This video is for you. I'm Elizabeth Cronise-McLaughlin, leadership coach, activist, and former Wall Street lawyer, and the founder of the Ripple Effect Institute. We help progressive leaders build movements that last. And if you're leading in this moment, or you're ready to, hit subscribe and tap that bell notification. This channel is your resource for strategy that outlives crisis. Okay, so let's not sugarcoat it. The signs of rising authoritarianism are here. States are criminalizing protest. We're seeing huge pushback against protest movements everywhere. Book bans and attacks on public education are common in many states now. We're seeing voter suppression all over certain regions of the nation. We see extremists taking over school boards and local governments, and coordinated disinformation campaigns silencing dissent and rewriting history. And let's not forget the actions of an incredibly biased and unethical Supreme Court. Where we are isn't theoretical. What we're seeing is textbook fascism, and it's accelerating. And if you've been doing this work for years, organizing, showing up, leading teams, pushing policy, getting your body in the street, you probably feel pretty exhausted, maybe disillusioned and even burnt out, or perhaps just frozen completely by the scope of it all. And let's be real, that is by design. Authoritarianism doesn't just want control, it wants chaos. It thrives on making you feel like there's no point in trying, because if you're too tired to resist, they win by default. So here's the first truth I want you to hold today. You're not burned out because you failed. You're burned out because you've been fighting power with your bare hands, and nobody gave you the infrastructure to make it last. That is not your fault. So here's the thing. We have to talk about panic versus strategy. Panic feels like action. You scroll, you repost, you rage share. But what it doesn't do is actually build power. When we respond to fascism with reactivity instead of strategy, we hand over our energy without gaining ground. We spin our wheels and we wear ourselves down. So how do we stop doing that? Well, we have to start building our own power on purpose. And that, well, it means shifting from urgency to intentionality, from solo efforts to collective infrastructure, from reaction to response, and from outrage to outcome. And it also means building dual power, a philosophy that has long been rooted in civil rights traditions. That's a strategy where we organize both within systems and outside of them. We use every crack in the existing structure to build alternative networks that can outlast collapse. So that might look like forming mutual aid pods instead of just donating when disaster hits, running for local office or backing candidates that actually reflect your values, organizing school board takeovers instead of watching extremists do it first, building up alternative safety nets when the ones we rely on from our government crumble. It also means training new leaders so your movement doesn't die with you. This isn't about doing everything. It's about doing what's most effective within your particular skill set and then doing it with other folks on the same journey. So let's get specific. What does strategic organizing look like right now? Well, first of all, it's about relational organizing over performative activism. The algorithm doesn't build movements. Relationships do. You have to talk to your people. You've got to build trust offline. You've got to organize through community and not just content. And one of the things that means is that you've actually got to get face to face with people where you live. You've got to think outside the box about how to expand your local networks to create change. And if you have a skill set that you think might be useful to those who are suffering or to those who are activating for true change, show up and offer it. Again, this is one way that we can take skill sets that we already have and use them in furtherance of transformative change. Next, we've got to focus on leadership that centers sustainability. You are not the battery or the engine behind what you're building. You're the builder. So in order to do that, you've got to set up systems, rituals, boundaries, and backup. If your movement depends on never resting, it's not a movement, it's a slow motion collapse. One of the things that we all need in this era is community-based support that sustains us. If you are going to take the skills that you have and your reason for being here to try to create big impact for positive change right now, you have to get past the idea that you can do that alone. Because the thing I want maybe the least is to see people with huge potential to create really positive impact right now losing their capacity to do that because they are exhausted, burnt out, and completely alone. You cannot build out real change without building out support for yourself at the same time. Next, I want you to focus on tactical local action. So, we don't win back democracy through presidential campaigns alone. We win it by organizing locally. And this is a real lesson that I think a lot of us have taken in the aftermath of the 2024 election. If we are organizing locally 24/7, not just during a given election cycle and not just for a particular candidate, we end up with sustainable movement building and real shifts in power. So what does this look like on the ground? Well, it means that where you live, you've got to get directly involved in what's happening. You need to know your city council. You need to show up at school board meetings. You need to train precinct captains if you're involved in electoral work. You need to show up at local meetings for nonprofits and service organizations that call to you. You also need to show up for others who are doing the same work. If there's an organization of women, for instance, where you live who are trying to move the needle on a given issue, show up and ask how you can help them. If there's an organization where you live that is doing immigrant rights work, show up and ask how you can be of support. One of the things that a lot of us fail to realize is that we've already got an incredible internal skill set that we've learned on the job or by being stay-at-home moms or by running our own businesses. And those skills are transferable. They matter deeply in moments like this. The question is how you put them into service. And maybe that's by starting something new yourself, a local organization that benefits people, a mutual aid platform that people can show up for once a week. But often it means showing up to established organizations and doing the skills work that you know how to do in furtherance of justice aims. All of us have capacity that is untapped to work in the direction of change. And if you find the right place to apply the skills you already have, you can be a part of the engine of justice, and you will not be doing it alone. We also need to consider how we set up parallel systems of care, and this is really deep dual power philosophy. If the state won't protect our people, we have to create community safety plans. We need things like abortion access networks and food safety planning. We need local community health care. We need food security hubs. These sorts of things are dual power in action. And here's a bonus truth. Stealth activism really matters because not everybody can be loud. Some of the most impactful organizers are the folks who work behind the scenes, creating change where it counts. So you don't need a platform and you don't need 50,000 followers on Blue Sky. You just need a plan. And you need to be willing to commit to using what you have to offer in furtherance of the greater good. That includes by building out systems that save lives where you live. So let's take a pause here. Drop me a comment below and tell me the skill set that you know you have that maybe you're not using to the fullest in furtherance of justice and change. Because I'll bet that when you start to think about it, you know that there's stuff you've already learned and things already in your skill set that could be applied differently. Tell me what it is in the comments, and then tell me how you're going to commit to using those skills in furtherance of the greater good. Okay, one thing I want to mention here that's really important. This isn't a moment that calls for perfection. It's a moment for participation more than that. And I want to speak directly to you if you're someone who's been organizing for years, but you feel really alone and tired, or if you've been showing up for protests and you can't really figure out what to do next. Maybe you lead a team at work and you know that the skills you have leading others would be better applied in leading social change. Or maybe you're a teacher or you're involved in a faith leadership group where you feel pressure mounting and you don't know what to do. You want to do more, but you don't know where to start. Maybe you're afraid, but you know you're not ready to quit. You're exactly who this moment is calling for. But you can't lead through this moment without support. You need a container for your leadership. one that offers strategy, not just slogans, one that centers your sustainability because we need you in this for the long haul. At the Ripple Effect Institute, we help seasoned progressive leaders like you build movements that outlast crisis. We train leaders on how to move from reaction to structure, from surviving to scaling, and from isolation to interdependence. Inside the Ripple Effect Institute, we offer a tremendous body of support for folks just like you. We do 2 live calls a week. We have a private community of deeply committed change makers, and we support one another through burnout, backlash, and political chaos. We offer a bunch of bonus trainings in there that will teach you everything you need to know about dual power and about disinformation and about telling the truth in this era. And we also train you to be the progressive leader that you are meant to be so that we can all work to save this democracy together. If this speaks to you, if you feel yourself nodding or tearing up or feeling that tug in your gut, this is your invitation. You can book a free strategy call with our team at the Ripple Effect Institute at the link below. We'll talk about where you are, what you need, where you want to go, and how we can build it together. Because I'll tell you something, fascism is not waiting in this era, but neither are we. Let's get to work.